Hi guys, Rachel with Spunky Misfit Girl here, and someone asked me on one of my recent videos, how do you enjoy fussy cutting? Because she hates it. And I thought I would just do a kind of shorter, more chatty video answering that question while we do a little bit of fussy cutting. So these are all fussy cuts that I have in my Etsy shop. These are little cuties from one that has also bigger sizes, but I pulled the little ones because they're a little more difficult and frustrating to cut. So I thought I would talk a little bit about some tips for different things. I have several different sets of butterflies that are very popular. These are the purple ones. The blue, white, and gold ones are some of the most fun things to fussy cut, especially these bigger sizes. They're so great. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then these are Gothic corsets. And I made these before, well, I've learned and I've become a better designer, and I made these before I knew how to do the outline on the fussy cuts, which these both have. These do not. And I know creators do them in different ways. Some people put outlines on every single thing. Some people don't. Some, like Stamperia, will come with fussy cuts that don't have outlines. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about each different style. I do tend to prefer outlines, and in future fussy cuts that I make for my shop will always have outlines on them. But I'll show you some ways to think about doing it without an outline too. So the first thing is I have two different sets of scissors that I variously use for cutting, two different kinds really. I have these bigger, longer ones, and I tend to use these for longer, straighter lines when I need that length to get it straight. These can be good for fussy cutting though, especially small ones. These are Singer sewing scissors, and I have like 4 pairs of those or something. But I've also started using these more for fussy cutting too, and they work fine. So it's really not a big deal, just something that you're comfortable with, that you like using. What I will say to prep here before I start is that one of the things for me is that I don't particularly like fussy cutting either, right? It always feels a little bit just frustrating. So I never do a whole bunch at once. I generally do, I know some people will, they'll just like sit down and watch TV or whatever and go through cutting a whole bunch. And I do generally do some fussy cutting when I'm watching something or listening to something. So that is one way to help it be a little more fun. Listen to a podcast, or I'll put on a show that I don't really need to pay close attention to. But I generally do these in very small batches. Like, I do what I need. If I have an upcoming project that needs a couple of these little guys, I'll do them, 3 or 4 in a batch. But I never do a mass fussy cut, okay? Because that's not something that I would enjoy. So it's partly just knowing yourself and finding your own style. So let's take a look. Let's start with the butterflies because they're kind of the easiest. So the thing that you're going to want to do that really makes a difference, that is helpful, is you're going to want to keep in mind that you're not moving your scissors. You're moving your paper. So you can hold and it takes a little bit of practice, and it's going to take a little bit for me to talk and do it at the same time. But you can hold your scissors basically still, and you see how I've got my hand here on the side with the paper? I'm actually moving that paper much more than I'm moving the scissors. And that is how that works out a lot better. You're not, I don't know why, really. I don't know what, but it just makes it easier and simpler, and you can kind of get into a flow, right? And I'll show you when we do the ones without an outline, how I kind of keep it, you're kind of keeping it the same distance from the image itself, which here, because there's an outline, you know, I don't have to guess that myself, but that's what I'll do on the other one. And there's a little bit of just kind of estimating it as you go here too, even with the outline. Something else that I will say that definitely has helped me to enjoy fussy cutting, and this is maybe a little strange because you don't want to arrange your life this way, but like I mostly work online. I have a full-time job, and it is all digital. It's all online. It's all on screen. There. And so one of the things that's nice about fussy cutting for me, because of that, is that it's a real analog world thing to do, right? And this is maybe kind of the way to think about it. One of my colleagues, when I spoke to her about junk journaling, mentioned that gardening is kind of that thing for her. And if you just think about it is kind of like a thing to bring you back to the here and now. It sort of, think of it as meditation, right? Like it's a way to just, you're not in your head overthinking. You're not having to plan or fuss or worry in any way. You're just here. The whole purpose of fussy cutting is not to get something done, even though, you know, underneath it kind of is. Just don't think of it that way. Come to your fussy cutting with an attitude of, this is a moment for me to breathe. Right? I mean, presumably you're here crafting and making junk journals because you enjoy it, because it's a healing practice for you. I just totally cut that little guy off. That's okay. It's no big deal. You're here because you enjoy it. You're junk journaling because it does good things for you, right? Maybe it's just fun. You're getting to engage your artsy side. Maybe it's helping you heal. But I think that fussy cutting can really be this kind of way of quieting down and just really being very present in the moment. Just focusing on the thing you're doing and that alone, really. And that can make it enjoyable, and it can make it something that feels good after you've been through it too, right? It's like being in a flow state just for that little period of while you're cutting. You just kind of tune out everything else to focus on that narrow thing right in front of your attention, and that can be such a healing process. It ceases to become a frustration and becomes more like a guided meditation. And definitely, it's also a way to practice not worrying about making things perfect, right? If you mess something up and you don't cut it exactly perfectly, oh well. You just keep going on to the next thing, right? Keep breathing and cutting. I love these little fairy girls. They are so cute. They make great covers for notebooks. The bigger size anyway. I actually don't know what I'm going to do with these little ones. I just pulled them out to cut for this video because they're so a little more intricate. And actually what I am going to say here is that it's also totally optional how you cut, right? So this one here, I don't know how well you can see. I'm going to try to make sure you can see it, but it's very light. There's a little tendril that comes off that's hanging out all by itself there, and it's too hard to cut, and I don't want to. So I'm going to just cut it off. Oh, what a rebel. Right? And it looks fine. Doesn't matter. I don't need that little tendril. And that is totally optional. You can cut it if you want, or cut it off, just like I did. That's a little pointy. There she is. Ready to go. Now, lastly, I have these Gothic corsets, and they don't have outlines, and so it's a little different, but usually what I do, and I know other people do this differently. Some people want their fussy cuts right up against that edge. For me, I actually like having a little border around them, and I'm gonna ink it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So what I like to do actually is just kind of choose a width and make my own border and cut. I don't cut right up against things. I cut around them. Now with these corsets too, especially, they've got a lot of extra stuff, little greenery and bits and pieces, which I left on there. So it's, again, just like with the little pixie girl, it's totally up to you. You can cut those around those if you want to include them. I think they're kind of cool, but they're also a pain in the butt to cut out. So just cut them off if you want to, right? It's not a big deal. So I'm just kind of going around the outside. I'm going a little slower than I normally would so that you can hopefully see kind of how I am making that outline of my own and moving the paper and not the scissors. And then I'm going to ink these most likely with black too. So but I think that looks really elegant with the border around it, and it helps it stand up or stand out from whatever it's on. This one really has a lot of fiddly bits. So this is how I ultimately can get myself to enjoy fussy cutting. I forget who it was who answered or who asked the question. I think it was somebody who was following along with the big tab bound journal giveaway. But really, like, the trick is hugely in anything like this to know yourself, you know? Like, there will be some days where you're better able to sit down and take a breath and do some of this. There will be other days where you want nothing to do with it. And that definitely is true for me. There are some days where I'm just like, I am not fussy cutting today. And that's okay. I follow one of the things that I so love about junk journaling and everything to do with it is that I just follow what is feeling good to me in it, right? If today I don't want a fussy cut, I don't. Do something else. And the great thing about doing this, if you're doing this as a hobby, is really that you can always come back to, you know, you're doing this because it gives you joy. You're doing it for fun. And I think even just the reminder of that sometimes is a good way to think about any piece of it that you're not as fond of, is that, you know, you never need to do any of it if you don't want to. The other thing I will say about fussy cutting is that there are machines that do this for you. If you really hate it and you really need to do, like, you want a lot of fussy cuts. I have not tried it yet. I'm planning to at some point in the future invest in one of them, but every time I look at people's comments about different machines, I end up not being able to decide what to get. So, but the Cricut, various forms of the Cricut will do this for you. And probably ultimately that will be what I try first, because I think it does other things that will be valuable to me. But also I hear a lot of good things about the Brother Scan and Cut. So you can also always look into options for getting a machine and doing away with fussy cutting altogether. I know I've seen a lot of people have a lot of joy when they get that machine and say, I never have to fussy cut again. You know, machines come with other frustrations of their own. I've heard a lot of people say they don't love the design software in Cricut and all the setup that you have to do. And for me, that's one of the things that's also held me back, is that, like I said, because I work so much on the computer, I'm on the computer all the time. one of the things that's so nice about this is that it takes me away from that. I think I want to save this little rose here because it's pretty and it'll give us a little bit of a different. Now the inside of this is very tricky, so I think I'm actually going to switch to the little tiny scissors for this and just go backward. But that's the thing, I really think, and before you jump to machines, and really if you're doing this as a hobbyist, you probably really don't need a machine anyway. Sit down and try it as a kind of conscious quieting exercise, you know? You're gonna fussy cut to calm yourself today. Let's see how that goes for you. So now you can see how the shorter scissors sometimes, especially with fussy cutting, these little spaces where you need to be able to turn a little more nimbly, these can be really great for that, much better than the big long scissors. And that's it. That's how I enjoy fussy cutting. I think they came out very pretty. If you like any of these printables, you can get all of them in my Etsy shop, which is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video.